There we go.
Good morning. We see our attendees count is going up quickly. We'll be starting here in just a minute. Good morning. As you are joining, we will get started here shortly. Good morning. For those who are just hopping on the call, we will get started shortly. If this is your first time using Zoom webinar, you will notice that only the panelists and the moderators have video and audio. Participants, you will just be listening and using the chat and Q&A features to communicate. Moderators and panelists, if you will put your microphones on mute, that would be helpful. That stops some of that background feedback. Good morning. If you are just joining, we will be getting started shortly. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Again, we are waiting for some attendees to join us. We will get started shortly. Good morning, Brian. If you will test your microphone and audio quick before we get started, that would be great. Excellent. Seeing that we are at 10:05, I am going to go ahead and kick us off here this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. To introduce myself, my name is Bobby Sullivan, and I am the Director of Career Development at Simpson College. For those students who are joining us from Simpson College, hello. And from students who are joining us from other institutions, hello to you as well. This production is being hosted via Zoom webinar. If you are not familiar with this technology, there are some notes for you on the slide. One thing that may look different to you from typical Zoom meetings is that only the panelists and the moderators have video and audio. If you are joining as a participant, you are able to listen and then communicate with the panelists and the moderators using the chat and Q&A features. I am so grateful that my colleague Lori Defoe is helping this morning. So Lori will be keeping an eye on those chats and those Q&A features coming in. Lori, as there are times that you would like to stop us, please feel free to do so. And I look forward to hearing from you and the best ways we can interact with the students who are here. Speaking of that Keeping Educated Youth in Des Moines group, for a bit of background on that group, it is an organization that connects area colleges and universities with employers in the area. That way we can all stay in communication and learn from one another. You will see the list of colleges who are part of that group. So students, if you are from those institutions, hello to Central, DMAC, Drake, Grandview, Purdue University Global, Simpson, and Upper Iowa. This organization is housed within the Urbandale Chamber of Commerce. Toward the end of this event, we will hear from a representative from the chamber who will greet you and thank you for being here. Getting started this morning, I want our panelists to have an opportunity to introduce themselves. Panelists, you will see the order that we will go in. So when it is your turn, you can go ahead and unmute your mic. But before we do that, I am noticing, Lori, are there questions coming in that we want to address before we get started?
I think we're good, Bobby. I'm only seeing the chat, so if you could monitor the questions and answers, that would be helpful.
Excellent. Give me one moment here.
Okay, I just switched to LinkedIn on our screen. So you're now sharing LinkedIn versus your PowerPoint. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. I saw a raised hand from Jess over at Central. So Jess, if you are needing something pretty immediately, if you will go ahead and shoot an email over to Lori so she can be watching for that, just to make sure we get that. All right, but without further ado, let's go ahead and have our panelists introduce themselves, starting with Mary. So Mary, when you're ready, love to hear a bit more about you, your organization, and what connects you to this panel.
Can you hear me now? Great, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Bontrager. I'm Executive Vice President for the Greater Des Moines Partnership. We're a regional economic and community development organization, cover a 10-county region in the heart of Iowa. I oversee our talent development areas, which is all about recruiting and retaining talent to Des Moines, certainly our work with our education ecosystem, K-12 higher ed, and the training environment. And I'm just thrilled to be here today and be a part of this panel. And I really enjoyed the session last week. I learned quite a bit about what's going on within our community as it relates to internships. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for being with us, Mary. Dylan, when you are ready, love to hear your introduction.
There we go. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, perfect. So good morning, everybody. My name is Dylan DeYoung, and I'm a talent acquisition specialist at Vermeer Corporation. We are a agricultural and industrial manufacturer of heavy equipment headquartered in Pella, Iowa. And so my area of expertise on our team is I actually specialize in all of our professional office hiring. So when I describe that to people, I usually share that that is pretty much everything outside of manufacturing and outside of engineering and IT. So it's your marketing, it's your sales, finance, HR, legal, pilots, nurses, kind of whatever they throw my way. In addition to those responsibilities, I also co-lead our intern program. And so that is everything from managing the program pieces for 45 to 55 interns each summer. And you know, kind of what brings me and ties me to this group is I am a December 2014 graduate of Simpson College. So to all of the fellow college members out there, go Storm.
All right, excellent. I need to get my screen back up here, but while I am doing that, let's go ahead and hear from Brian next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Gilbreth. I'm a campus recruiting consultant with Wells Fargo. We have about anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 interns nationwide every summer, which is obviously my connection to this, with Des Moines, Iowa being one of our hub areas where we have quite a bit of intern activity. We have interns anywhere from, you know, sort of traditional finance, risk, financial analysts, wealth and investment management, and sort of across all of our work streams. I'm in Ankeny, Iowa, and so again, my connection to Des Moines area. I guess maybe not unfortunately, but I am a graduate of Iowa State, so close enough to the Des Moines area, though not part of Key here. So looking forward to being able to interact with everyone today.
Thank you for being with us, Brian. Maddie, when you are ready.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Maddie Schmidt, and I am a recruiting specialist at Co-op Financial Services. Co-op is actually headquartered in California, but our largest office is here in West Des Moines. We have about 600 employees here in Iowa, and I lead our internship program as well as work on some of our temporary employment as well. So Co-op is a provider of access and convenience products to credit unions. So we really, I say simply, help credit unions compete with the big banks of the world. So that's our mission, and that's what I help do at Co-op.
Excellent. Thank you, Maddie. A bit about the structure of this call. So for those of you who registered here within the last couple of days, you were sent a pre-panel questionnaire from the Urbandale Chamber of Commerce. And this questionnaire allowed you to submit questions for the panelists in topics that you would like discussed. We have been looking at those questionnaire responses and looking for themes as to what you all would like to be hearing about this morning. There is a nice split between those who are wanting to hear about summer 2020 internships and those who are wanting to hear about full-time hiring for the class of 2020. So we will start with questions related to internships. We will then move to questions related to full-time hiring. And if time is available at the end, we will open it up for further discussion. But we do appreciate those of you who submitted questions in advance. They were fabulous questions and will make for a robust conversation this morning. Lori, before I get started with any questions, anything that we need to jump in and do from the chat features or those that are on the event?
We are doing great. I am monitoring the chat and question and answer. So if you have additional questions to those that are displayed on Bobby's PowerPoint, please feel free to type them and we will jump in as soon as we have an opportunity to answer. Thank you all.
Excellent. The first question that was asked by many of you are related to the changes that are being made to summer 20 internships in relationship to COVID-19. So I am going to ask that the companies who are listed in the corner, those panelists, that you will share what changes you have had to make, especially in relationship to what would normally be done. So Dylan at Vermeer, will you kick us off? What changes are you seeing at your company?
Yeah, you bet. So as we started off last fall in our internship hiring, we had 58 intern openings slotted for this upcoming summer, with, I would say, about 95% of those being based out of Pella. And so as our executive team met just in the last month or two, they did make the decision to reduce that number of 58 down to 26 intern positions that really fell to some key business critical and pipeline filler type roles that are either difficult to fill or ones that we see on an ongoing basis. And so they did reduce that overall number, and with that 26, we are now looking at, of those individuals, where possible, allowing individuals to work remotely from home. And then for some of the more hands-on roles, we will have them be based out of Pella, but really just trying to reduce the number of people that will be on site.
Thank you, Dylan. Maddie, what is happening at your organization?
Yeah, for Co-op, we are excited to share that we are pushing forward with the interns that we planned. So we actually are a smaller organization, so we have 13 interns, 3 of them being in our California location and the other 10 being here in Des Moines. And we are moving to a fully virtual internship program. So we're actually starting here in the middle of May. We debated pushing the start date back, but decided not to. So we will be shipping laptops and other equipment directly to our interns' homes, giving them the opportunity to get set up. We're going to be providing a lot of training and webinars around being a remote employee and how to navigate this new challenge. We'll also be training our managers internally, because this will be a different intern-manager relationship as well. Of course, our fingers are crossed that hopefully June, July, we'll potentially get to transition all of our interns on site, but we're prepared to have them intern with us virtually as long as needed.
Fantastic, thank you. Brian, what's happening at Wells Fargo?
So, oh, there we go. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Similar story in a few facets to Dylan and Maddie. Wells Fargo's internships traditionally would be 10-week internships that run from kind of the start of June until early to mid-August. Again, from some of the same challenges, location, and just sort of technical difficulties to do this. We have delayed our start dates from June 1st to July 6th. So we have reduced our internship from a 10-week internship to a 5-week internship. And we have made the internship 100% virtual. So some of the stuff Maddie talked about with, training how to be a work from home employee, even curriculum associated with what does a 5-week virtual internship look like versus a 10-week virtual or a 10-week on-site internship. And then, Maddie brought up a good point too, training our managers on how that looks, talking about engagement for both manager and intern during that time. But we thought this was a very good compromise to continue to have an internship when many of them are being canceled, and just shorten it and make it virtual.
Thank you. Dylan, Maddie, Brian, are there any internship openings for this coming summer still available within your organizations that would be helpful to promote to students who are listening in?
So for Wells Fargo, we do much of our recruiting in the fall of the year, and any remaining gaps we fill in the spring. However, when I say spring, it's usually like January, February that we try to fill those. So at this point, you'd probably call me a liar if you went out to Wells Fargo and found something that was in terms of internship, but the majority of our internship needs and on our campus recruiting team, there's not much still available for internships this summer.
Yeah, for co-op, if you would have asked me that question about 2 weeks ago, I would have said all of our internships were full. But we did get some last minute approvals to add 2 IT service desk interns to our team for this summer. So if there's some computer science students or other computer engineering students that are interested in exploring that path, please apply on our website. So I would love to see some more applications for that.
Yeah, and I would say for Vermeer, probably same story as Brian shared, that at the moment for 2020 internships, you wouldn't find any posted on our website. However, we will quickly shift our focus to summer 2021 interns. And so what I would encourage each of you is to visit the Vermeer website in August, beginning of August, mid-August timeframe. Because we do try to fill all of our intern spots in the fall. So we'll be quickly posting those, hopefully, fingers crossed, end of July, first part of August. And so that would be a really good time for anybody that has at least a semester left in their college careers. They can be considered for those.
Excellent. Thank you, Dylan. And Dylan, I'm going to just go ahead and leave you off of mute so you can address the next question here. Oh, excuse me. And I know that you are currently working from home a couple of days a week, and your interns may be as well this summer. What work from home strategies do you have for either interns or full-time employees who may find themselves working in a remote environment this summer?
Yeah, you know, I would say in my experience, what I've found that frankly works best for me is if you have a typical routine when you are going into the office, try to mirror that and continue that, even if you're in a work from home capacity. And so when you are working from home, it's very easy to get distracted by, you know, taking the dog out and, you know, things going on outside. And so if you at least have that structure and that routine in place, and even if you need to break it down into doing time blocks, you know, where you dedicate on your calendar time to focus on certain things that you need to get done, those would all be things that I would encourage for each of you as you transition to, you know, working from home. Having a routine is really key in ensuring that you stay productive in the work.
Excellent, thank you. Brian, tips from your end on working in that remote environment?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll echo a lot of the things that Dylan said. I think it's easy to wake up, stay in your pajamas, and work from your computer because you don't have to be on stage and things like that. But I think that's kind of a pitfall. I would echo what Dylan said as far as, you know, if you're used to getting up at 6:30 or whatever it is, I think you still do that. I think you still take a shower. I think you still try to find, you know, a place in your house or wherever you're at, if it's a corner of the room or a room itself, and make that your workspace, and do everything you can to remain focused on work. You know, some of the time management stuff, the blocking off of, it's almost like you try to block your distractions into, you know, that hour in the middle of the day that we would call lunch to do things like walk the dog. So I agree with a lot of what Dylan said. I think trying to make work from home like you're going to work, right? Go to a place in your house that is your workspace and work from there will help keep you less distracted, because it is easy to get distracted working from home. So a lot of the same things that Dylan pointed out.
Excellent, thank you. We know that in this environment, it is difficult to stay engaged. I think students are feeling that in their coursework. I think we as professionals are feeling that in our day-to-day environments. Curious to hear from Maddie and from Mary. How will your organizations help interns to stay engaged and to avoid that virtual burnout that may happen? So Maddie, thoughts on that?
Yeah, as far as the engagement piece, we know that as a remote intern, their only interaction throughout the day may just be with that manager or some of the people on their direct team, but we want to still have them feel like they're a part of the internship program. So we've made sure to every other week have some type of activity planned that brings all of our interns together, even though it is virtually. But encouraging them to, just like us, all get on video so it feels as personal as we can get it. But just giving those opportunities for the interns to meet face-to-face and having both learning opportunities where we're going to have a LinkedIn workshop, a resume workshop, and also just fun activities where we bring the interns together to do some trivia and other activities, just to kind of avoid that burnout of sitting at your computer only talking to the same 3 people and doing your work every day. So trying to spice that up a little bit. And we're currently also working on implementing some type of wellness program where we're, you know, encouraging a little competition between the interns to get out and take breaks to walk and do some of those other activities at home as well, to kind of get them away from the computer and encourage those very needed breaks.
Great ideas. Thanks, Maddie. Mary, how about from you?
Well, as many of you know, in the past, for the past almost 10 summers, the partnership has done a program called Seize the City, where we have brought interns together in person 6 times over the course of the summer, and then also had them do some community engagement activities. My team member, Sydney Peasley, who is running that program this summer, is also participating in this call today. We're shifting that to provide content virtually. So we will still do professional development content delivery. We will involve area leaders to share their leadership tips and have opportunities for connection with the interns. So Maddie, to your point, while your interns are maybe only engaging with their leaders or themselves, we want to really expand this internship network to where all interns can communicate and share how they're feeling. We're hopeful that maybe by July, we can also continue with the actual in-person community engagement opportunities, but we'll adjust that to be smaller groups if it allows. So we really want your interns to experience DSM USA as much as they're experiencing their opportunities with all of you. And for those of you that have virtual interns that might not be here, they can still have that engagement opportunity with other interns that are here and feel a little bit of they are here in DSM USA.
Super, thank you. Now there are students, and Dylan, you had mentioned this had to happen with students who are interning with Vermeer, whose positions have had to be canceled. And I know that there are a lot of students out there who are worried if they did have a position that was canceled, or maybe they were hoping to have an internship but never did secure one and are having trouble doing so in this environment. What ideas do you have for them in terms of how they spend their summers? How can they still be productive with their time and not get behind in their career development?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say first and foremost, I think each student will find that area companies and the talent acquisition professionals within those companies, probably now more than ever, are willing to sit down and have a coffee conversation over 30 minutes, even if it's a virtual conversation. And so, my recommendation would be, take advantage of those opportunities. Really leverage LinkedIn to its full capacity. So if you have key companies that you have interest in, spend a little bit of time really getting to know who they are as a business, and then search and reach out to some of those professionals within that business and start that conversation early. And so that way, when the markets do come back around, you'll already have that relationship built, and you're starting on a different foot than you would be if you were just to go online and submit your application. So in this downtime, I would definitely network and spend some time, researching your companies and reaching out in that way.
Mary, ideas from you?
Yeah, thank you. And I agree 100% with Dylan. I think this is a great opportunity to really build those professional networks. In addition to that, we're spending quite a bit of time in content that we're putting out really on that increasing your employability value. So this is a great opportunity for interns to, take some time, read articles about their chosen profession or industry, do things like modules on LinkedIn Learning, or do those things that will really increase their value, because quite honestly, in the job market, regardless, you want to find ways to stand out. So this is really a great time for these interns to think about ways they can stand out, and think about, what are maybe some things that they could become kind of online experts. I was watching a piece the other night where a basketball player was conducting clinics. So is there a special skill or something that you do that you want to maybe start becoming an online expert in how you can share that, and things that, again, will add value, your employability value as employers look at you. It's always about how do you stand out.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dylan, you had mentioned this already about the value of networking. One of the questions that came in was, how do you network during this time of social distancing? During other times, we would recommend that students go to in-person events or in-person tours or in-person conferences. And we know that those things aren't happening in the way that they once did during this time. So I will let the other panelists now speak to what ideas do you have to keep building your networks during this time? Maddie, starting with you.
Yeah, I think you can 100% continue networking during this time. I was thinking about this question, and I thought of the example of I was on LinkedIn just scrolling through looking for different opportunities, and last week there happened to be a panel webinar about this topic for employers. So I myself just joined in as an attendee, and there was an opportunity to answer a question. So I shared my input, and now here I am a week later being asked to join this panel. So just by looking for those opportunities, because like I think we've mentioned, I think Dylan mentioned, they're out there on LinkedIn. Definitely use that as a resource to find them. And then when you get in those opportunities, feel free to speak up, share your ideas. It's just going to lead to more opportunities for you. And as you mentioned as well, I've already had a couple coffee virtual dates where we just turned on our webcam, and I've gotten to chat with mentors of mine and other people that I just want to learn more about what they do. So don't be afraid to continue to reach out and have those conversations virtually.
Brian, ideas to add?
Yeah, I think that I don't have tons of different stuff from what Maddie said. I think the good news is that companies are looking to be agile here in a virtual space, and college students have been dealing with things like you know, virtual networking and LinkedIn and Zoom and things like that for maybe a little bit longer than what I have anyways. And so I think that naturally this kind of plays into your hand. To Maddie's point, I think you go out and you look for these. It might be a little bit more work to go out and try to find opportunities to virtually connect. But all the same foundation is there. Asking for a virtual coffee talk instead of meeting at a coffee shop. Doing the things that you would normally do from networking. You're just finding different platforms to do it. So, nothing groundbreaking here. I think the good news is that employers recognize that. And so I think you'll find opportunities with employers putting it out there to have maybe more opportunities virtually than what you'd seen previously. So I think just putting yourself out there and doing some research, and then, asking for that time. I think Dylan said this before too, that now more than ever, employers are going to open themselves up to helping to stay engaged, because we're thinking about the same things, honestly, that college students are. So opportunities will be there for sure.
Mary, how about from the partnerships angle?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Maddie and Brian said. I would also suggest look for those professional industry groups. They're doing all kinds of social networking. I think of Technology Association of Iowa, or the professional marketers, or you kind of name the group. Find those groups and see what they're doing socially. There's also great young professional organizations. We oversee YPC, the Young Professionals Connection, but many of our communities, Urbandale, our communities have YPC groups. Now's a wonderful time to engage, because they're all doing social networking and professional development delivery. So start engaging with those that are already in the workplace through the young professional groups.
Fantastic, much appreciated. All right, switching gears, now that we are a little over halfway through our time, to think about those who are soon to be graduating and what the job market will look like for them. So I'm curious to hear what the prospects are for our graduating seniors and the impacts that this will have. Mary, I will share with you as you answer this question. We are getting some feedback from the chat feature that in addition to hearing about some of the business and STEM sectors that these companies are representing, kind of speaking more broadly about what you're seeing across the metro.
Sure. Well, I guess I would just start by saying, you know, every industry and every city across the country, we're all in the same boat. But what we really had in the Des Moines area prior to the pandemic was an employee market. And what we were seeing coming down the road is not only great growth in our companies, but we were, you know, also seeing in certain industries, I see someone asked a question about healthcare, where, you know, we had certain industries where we were starting to come onto the cusp of a lot of retirements and so forth. That's not going to go away. It might have been moved back a little bit, but it will come back. And so I think long-term, we're a growing region, and I think the opportunities are going to be really strong as we come out of this. The other thing I might mention is, you know, as I've been kind of watching trends across the country, particularly in the real estate market, and watching how people are starting to look at real estate in other areas. And, you know, in this new environment, more companies are going to think about, they don't need their employees working where they are necessarily. So I think that really broadens the job market for a lot of these students. They can live in Des Moines and possibly work for a company that's located in New York or California. So I think it definitely broadens the job market. And I think it will also really play well to us as a mid-sized community as people start to think about where do they want to live and where do businesses want to locate where people want to live. So I'm optimistic about the long term. And again, I think we just have to think in the short term, we'll get through this. What can you know, these students do to use this time to really increase that employability value? But I do think their marketplace has just really broadened.
Fantastic, thank you. Dylan, what are we seeing for our graduating seniors on your end?
Yeah, I would echo much of what Mary shared. At Vermeer, how we've looked at it is we know that the needs that we had prior to COVID are still going to be there after. And so it's more or less shifting those needs to later in the year. And so, you know, I think we're just seeing some of that hiring get pushed back. I think it's still going to come back around. And as our market research team has really looked at, you know, how the markets are going to come back, we do feel that it's going to be one of two ways, where it's, you know, we almost like a V, where we had a sharp decline and then we'll have a sharp incline back up. You know, there are others that would say that, you know, we had the sharp decline and then we'll spend a little bit more time in kind of that lower part. But then eventually it'll lead to a sharp incline back up. And so, you know, the hiring needs are going to be there. I would also agree that, you know, at Vermeer, where historically we were not a company that was, I would say, overly well known for remote work, this is opening our eyes a little bit to what is possible. And so I think we'll see that get shifted to what's more possible down the road as well.
Dylan, I will stay with you. For those positions that you are still hiring, how have your hiring processes had to change to accommodate the time that we're in?
Yeah, for us, we've shifted a lot of that, where we would normally do in-person interviews. We're now doing the video interview. And so our process kind of on the front end, we're still reviewing resumes, we're still doing those phone conversations, only instead of having candidates actually come in to do that interview in person, we're doing that via video. And then we are also in the process, part of our hiring process, we would actually have individuals do campus tours or tours of our factories. And so we are looking at ways that we can create a virtual experience for those to take place as well. And so, for those roles that are continuing on, how can we still create that experience for those candidates that, they may not be able to see the campus in person, but how do we give them the next best thing, at least, taking kind of a virtual tour of the campus to see what that looks like. And so a lot of it's been shifted to virtual via video, and then looking at ways that we could provide kind of that virtual tour experience as well.
Brian, how about for you? What changes have you seen to hiring processes?
Sorry, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with the mute button here. Yeah, so a lot of what, because Wells Fargo's footprint is nationwide, we do a fair amount of phone interviews, non-COVID-19, for at least the first couple of rounds. And then typically we would do some of the same stuff, on-site interviews, maybe diversity events and places to get candidates into Wells Fargo and kind of see our facilities. Just like Dylan said, we leverage things like what we're doing right now, Zoom and Skype and FaceTime, and we have those options for virtual interviews. And so those front end things have modified a little bit. Another thing that we've done, a lot of our positions, because Wells Fargo's a government contractor, we do fingerprinting prior to start, to go along with the background check, and we've had to get some exceptions that sort of change or adjust that process a little bit so that fingerprinting can be done, because a lot of those fingerprinting sites are closed right now, and so there isn't a way to get people to do fingerprints. So we've done some sort of location-based background checks and sort of delayed those fingerprinting requirements until later in the start date or in the summer. And so that's, forced us to adjust offer letters and some of our verbiage. So we're trying to, react to all these changes, but yeah, simple things, just phone interviews, Zoom, and then trying to be as flexible as we can and make it as easy to bring on, strong talent as we can during this time.
Excellent. Appreciate you sharing. As you can imagine, and as you have shared, the interviews that are happening during this time are happening virtually. And for some students, this may be the first time that they are interviewing on a platform like this. Dylan, I'm curious to have you start. How would you recommend that applicants prepare and perform during this virtual interview? And what advice do you have for helping them to stand out?
Yeah, I would say, kind of going back to earlier in the conversation where we talked about how you set up your workspace when you're in that virtual environment, I would say that would be very similar when you're getting prepared for a virtual interview. And so have that dedicated space that you can go to and really shut out all of those distractions. Make sure your audio works, make sure the lighting in the room, that you don't have shadows behind you, with a window or anything like that. And so those would be a couple of tips that as you kind of position yourself for that video interview. But as it comes to soft skills and technical skills, frankly, even in a video interview, we're still looking for some of those same things, that good eye contact, clear and concise responses to those questions. And so some of the same methods that you would employ in an on-site interview, continue to do that only with a video interview. You have to check a few things, with the surroundings, and make sure your audio and video looks good too.
Brian, anything to add? How might candidates stand out during these virtual interviews that we're conducting?
Yeah, I think Dylan hit it on the head. Other than, we're looking for the same communication styles. We're looking for the same competencies out of our candidates. I think the thing that Dylan's point sets you apart is more logistical stuff, technical stuff. Maybe doing your homework a little bit and some test runs. Good points on lighting and sort of visual presentation. Only because you don't want any distractions, right? The same way that when you're doing a phone interview, you might say, stop saying and they use too many fillers and stuff like that. Those are just distractions from what we're looking for. And you can apply that to the visual representation of yourself. So anything that's distracting, you want to try and remove. So I think those are really good points on the logistical piece of it. And the good news is when it comes down to it, if you still are a good interviewer, you're going to be a good interviewer on Zoom as well. Because again, when it comes down to it, we're still looking for strong communication and competency-based answers and people that have the experience that we're looking for.
Super, thank you. Curious to know, and a student is as well who submitted this question, what skills are essential in the workplace, especially right now? Mary, what are you hearing from our employers out there?
Well, we had been spending some time this past year really looking at this future world of work. And so much of, what I've been hearing from our other panelists talking about competencies and skills. And while, certain jobs, you always are going to have those technical skills, we've really been talking about those kind of core competencies that will be needed across all jobs. Those things like creativity, emotional intelligence, analytical skills, an active learning mindset, good judgment and decision making, those interpersonal communication skills, diversity and cultural intelligence, the technology skills, and then the agility, this embracing change, which has really come into play so strongly right now that, now is again a time for your students to be thinking about those core competencies that will be needed in the world of work, regardless of the profession or the industry where they go. And through our DSM Employment Ready site, that we built during this interim period, we've got a series of podcasts that we've started that talk about, what are those kind of 10 or so core competencies, and then we're doing deeper dives into each of those and encouraging people, again, you can go use online learning opportunities right now to find out how can you hone in on those competencies and skills.
Agreed. Maddie, what skills are looking essential for your organization?
Yeah, Mary mentioned a whole list there, which is excellent. The two that really came to mind for me were adaptability and the willingness to learn. Especially we're in the financial technology space, and as Mary alluded to, technology is ever changing, so we need our employees to be able to adapt and really handle anything that's thrown their way. One of our company values is to champion change, so we want those innovative thinkers that are always forward thinking and really have the courage to see a process that may already be in place that they think they can make more efficient. So always thinking of different ways to do things. And then that willingness to learn is so important because every organization does things differently. We all have our own processes. We use our own software. So even if you've been doing a job for years at one company, if you make that switch, there's a learning curve. So especially as a new graduate entering the workforce for the first time, you have to be open-minded and willing to learn a company's process. And just know that there is that learning curve ahead. So we're always looking for people that are open to that and want to take on that challenge.
Appreciated. Brian, anything to add?
I do. Am I on? Okay. Sorry. The good news about going last is that you can just say ditto to what everybody else said. So I won't regurgitate everything, but all really good points made by Mary and Maddie. I think that the environment that we're in is going to challenge companies and job seekers in different ways. I personally think I'll answer this question from a like right now, right? So like this summer. Because Maddie and Mary did a good job of answering like what we're looking for that you can build upon for the future. But to me, the things that stick out for this summer are communication, adaptability or flexibility, and then I think Maddie called it willing to learn, but like initiative, right? Because if I think about interns that are virtual this summer, we're probably going to start our full-time associates virtual, at least at the beginning. That's an environment that's going to force you to communicate a lot more. It's going to force you to be flexible because we're all going through this and learning as we go in some cases, and then have some initiative and go out and find ways that you can add value. So in addition to what the ladies before me talked about, communication, flexibility, and initiative are pretty high on my list right now.
Wonderful. Before I move on to our final question, I do want to ask my career services colleagues to help us using the chat feature. There have been some questions that have come in around adding value. So there have been ideas related to LinkedIn and related to doing some additional networking. But career services colleagues, do you have other ideas for ways that students can add value as they continue to search for an internship or a job? If you'll use that chat feature to respond, that would be great so students can see those ideas as well. I will end just by naming how stressful of a time this is. While we are all trying to be positive and we're trying to give the best guidance that we can, we also need to acknowledge that it's tough right now and it is really challenging, and our students are feeling very stressed about the market that they're entering or about the summer landscape when it comes to the internships they were counting on. Advice or closing thoughts that you have for folks who are feeling that stress? Dylan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, my advice would be take a deep breath. The right opportunity will come along. It will never come along as soon as you would hope that it would, but take a deep breath. It will happen. Make sure you have a plan for your job search. So track those jobs that you're applying for, do your homework, tailor your resumes and your applications for the jobs that you're applying, because that does make you stand out. And then I think the other thing that I would just ask each individual to take into consideration is it is a stressful process. And so be mindful of how that frustration may show through. And so you never want, even though you might be stressed, you never want the employer to catch any wind of that. So just be mindful as you go into those conversations and those follow-up calls that frustration doesn't boil over and show through.
Maddie, additional comments?
Yeah, first of all, you are not alone. There's 70 some of you on this call that are probably all feeling that way. And as a recent grad myself, I've been there too. My two pieces of advice would be, I'm trying to think how to say, but believe in what you have to offer. I think when I was going through this time, every time I would look at a job posting, I would scan that qualification section so intensely to just find a reason for myself not to apply, because I didn't want to be rejected. So I would look and I was hitting all the qualifications, but if I didn't feel like I'd hit one, then I wouldn't apply. And I was really, really narrowing my search in that way. So I feel like you have to believe in yourself. And I'm not saying go apply for these CEO or jobs that are out of your league, but don't let, a few qualifications that you might be just short on hold you back from applying. The last two jobs I've gotten, I was not the best on paper. They've even told me that, but I got the opportunity to at least get to an interview and sell myself. And I never would have had that opportunity if I wouldn't have at least applied and taken that chance. And then again, the importance of networking. I tell this to everyone because it's helped me get to my current position. If you feel like you're submitting resumes and you're just not getting that opportunity to get to that interview stage, that's when you need to be proactive and just start doing the scary thing, which is finding people in the community that are doing a job you think is awesome or the job you want to do, and reach out to them and say, hey, here's a little story about me. Here's what I want to do. I see you're doing it. Do you mind sparing 15, 20 minutes for me to ask you some questions? And then make sure you come prepared to that conversation. So that's what has allowed me to get my last 2 opportunities. And I was one of those students that was, again, scared of rejection, didn't want to just reach out to strangers. But now that I'm on that side, I love when students reach out and want to have those conversations. So don't be afraid to get out there and network yourself. I'm very passionate about this topic, so.
Mary, we're running short on time. Anything about 30 seconds worth.
Sorry, Mary.
Mary, you're on mute currently.
Okay, I lost my 30 seconds. I agree with Maddie 100%. Reach out, make connections. Now's a good time to find a mentor because, you know, having someone to talk through these things is really important. We're all stressed out, but we're in this together. And stay healthy. Find what makes you happy and stay healthy.
As I am putting up this last slide, a couple of notes. So there were a lot of great questions that came in that we ran short on time to be able to answer. You heard from all of the panelists that they recommend LinkedIn, and I imagine that they would be open to you connecting with them and to continuing this conversation. Panelists, can you give me either a reaction or an actual thumbs up if you're okay with that? Awesome. I also want you to see the bullet point that those of us who are working in career development, we want to have these conversations with you too. Following this event, you will receive both a recording of this panel and the contact information for each of us who work in career development. So we do hope that you will get in touch with your institution's professionals so that we can assist you individually. We want to give a big shout out to our 2020 graduates. Congratulations to you. And before I sign off, Abigail or Tiffany, anything from the chamber side of the house?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Tiffany. Couple of quick things to note. We do have our Young Professional Program, Gen YP, and there's some scholarships that are available and some fantastic continuing ed opportunities. So we'll be sending the scholarship information out. It's a great group to connect with. You guys have all heard the same thing about networking, connecting, continuing education. Please apply for that scholarship to participate in our Young Professional Program. And thank you all very, very much for participating on this call. We look forward to connecting with you in the future. And thanks, Bobby.
Thank you, Tiffany. Panelists, special thank you to you. We so appreciate you being here. Career Services colleagues, thank you for continuing to support our students. Students who joined us today, thank you for your patience. As you can tell, I am also learning a lot in this time about technology and also trying to keep a smile on my face and be flexible as we go. So hope you got some great learning out of this. And as that last bullet on the screen says, please take good care.